Alrighty, welcome again to MTG Anonymous. Today we're visiting Knight's Charge, which is my second favorite of the Precon Brawl decks on MTG Arena. It's piloted by Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale. Let's go ahead and get into the review. So first off, we have Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale. For 3, a red, a white, and a black, you get a legendary human knight as 5/5 with Vigilance and Menace. And it says, whenever an equipped creature you control attacks, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. Equipment you control have equipped 0. So what's awesome about this, well, what's not awesome is it's another one of those do something, draw a card. But value is value, and in Brawl you need it, especially since it's limited to Standard and there aren't as many draw cards in Standard. So regardless, having the ability to equip equipment for 0 is pretty amazing, especially when you have ones like, let's see, Colossal Hammer, where it gives 10. Even though it loses flying, its equip cost is 8, so I can equip it for free and swing. That makes all of my creatures, especially ones with lifelink, way better. So let's get on to the next part. These are the 1-drops. First, Vulnerable Knight, Fulmir Knight, Knight of the Ebon Legion, and then Colossal Hammer. First, Vulnerable Knight. For 1 white, it's a 2/1 human knight, and when it dies, put a +1/+1 counter on target knight you control. Pretty simple. Most of the creatures in this deck are knights, if they're not all knights. I think they are all knights. Yep, except for the dragon. Looks like except for the Shivan dragon. We'll get back to that. So, getting a +1/+1 counter is pretty nice. We can make our creatures bigger, like the Fireborn Knight, since it has double strike. That'd make it pretty interesting. Fulmir Knight. This is the adventure cards. So, like we did in the last video, for adventure cards, we're going to read the adventure first, and then we'll read the creature. So first, Profane Insight, 2 and a black, instant adventure. You draw a card and you lose 1 life. And then the creature, as said before, Fulmir Knight is 1 black, 1/1 with Death Touch. Drawing a card and losing a life for 3 isn't great, but it's not bad, so I'd accept using it here. There's some cards that reduce the cost of instants, and so that make it a little nicer. But regardless, drawing a card when you need it and then being able to play a creature immediately after it is pretty nice. Next is Knight of the Ebon Legion. Make sure Knight of the Ebon Legion. This card saw a lot of play when it first came out in Standard, and it's really good, or well, relatively good. For 1 black, you get a 1/2 Vampire Knight, and then for 2 and a black, Knight of Ebon Legion gets +3/+3 and gains Death Touch until end of turn. At the beginning of your end step, if a player lost 4 or more life this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Knight of Ebon Legion. Why that's important is when you spin the 3 and it gets +3/+3 in Death Touch, most people aren't going to block it, and when they don't, you deal 4 damage. At least the first time you do it. And then it just grows exponentially as you go. I like it for swinging, and then if you have an equipment out, you can get the Colossal Hammer and give it the 3/3, and then it's really big and they have to block it, but then that lets other creatures get by. Next we have the Colossal Hammer. It's an equipment for 1. It says equipped creature gets +10/+10 and loses flying. Equipped costs 8. Having a creature with trample would make this card amazing, seeing as there aren't many creatures that are bigger than +10/+10 that are available in Standard at the moment. So there are, and they can grow that big, but Colossal Hammer just makes it even more fun. Next, we have the 2-drops, Order of Midnight, Smitten Swordmaster, Embrith Shieldbreaker. Oh no. Okay, sweet. I thought I was going to lose it. Embrith Shieldbreaker, Corpse Knight, Wintermore Commander, Inspiring Veteran, Knight Vanguard, Ancestor Blade, Shining Armor, Crystal Slipper, Mask of Immolation, D-Spark, Steelclaw Lance, Arcane Signet, and Marauder's Axe. Order of Midnight is another adventure card, so first, Alter Fate. For 1 and a black, it's a sorcery adventure. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And then, Order of Midnight is a 1 For 1 and a black, you get a Human Knight, 2/2, has flying, and it cannot block. Usually, unless you like really need to live, you don't need to block with a 2/2. So, but it's amazing that you can return a creature from your graveyard to your hand. You could get something like, I don't know, the Fulmir Knight, return it to your hand, and then use it as the adventure again. It'd be really good in like an adventure 5-color deck, which I actually want to work on, but I need to wait until the rest of the cards come out. Next is Smitten Swordmaster, another sorcery. It has Curry Favor. For 1 black, you gain X life, and each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of knights you control. And then Smitten Swordmaster, for 1 and a black, you get a 2/1 lifelinker human knight. What's important about that is since most of the creatures in this deck are knights, you can gain quite a bit of life. And then there's lots of incidental life gain, specifically with drawing cards, so you need to be able to gain the life. Next is Embrith Shieldbreaker, another sorcery, another adventure sorcery. For 1 black, battle display, destroy target artifact, and then for 1 and a red, you get a 2/1 human knight. Destroying a target artifact for 1 red, pretty important, especially when you have cards like Icon of Ancestry entering this set, or the Mace of the Valiant. It's pretty good to be able to remove important artifacts for 1 red. Next, Corpse Knight. For 1 and a black, you get a Zombie Knight 2/2. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life. You got quite a few creatures that enter the battlefield in this deck, so this is pretty good. Not as many as I'd like to see, and I don't see many ways to make tokens, so it could be better. It could be put in a better deck, but still, being as it's a Knight Tribal deck, you can do quite a bit of damage to it, or with it. Next is 1 or more Commander. For 1 and a black, you get a Human Knight 2/0, Death Touch, and then 1 or more Commander's toughness is equal to the number of knights you control. Whenever 1 or more Commander attacks, another target knight you control gains indestructible until end of turn. Since knights need to attack, which is usually what happens in Mardu colors, but when creatures have to attack, this is pretty nice that you can make 1 creature indestructible, and then the cost of white and black is important, especially with the Death Touch, because you can get this out early and people usually won't want to block it, and when they don't, you can make another creature indestructible. Next we have Inspiring Veteran. For red and white, other knights you get control get +1/+1. It's a 2/2 human knight. Important since it's a Knight Tribal, but there's not really anything else to talk about. Next, Sky Knight Vanguard. For red and a white, you get a 1/2 human knight. It has flying, and whenever Sky Knight Vanguard attacks, create a 1/1 soldier creature token that's tapped and attacking. So this is one way that we have creatures in for the Corpse Knight. If we can just keep this safe, we can keep making 1/1s each turn, and that's at least 1 damage we're doing to each of our opponents. Ancestor Blade, another way to make 1 token. For 1 and a white, you get an equipment. Says when Ancestral Blade enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token, then attach Ancestral Blade to it. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, and the equipped is 1. So you get the free 1/1, and then if you got Sir Gwyn out, or Sire, however you say that, somebody will correct me in the comments. You get to equip it for 0, and then equipped creature gets +1/+1. So it's okay. For 2, if it was for 1, I'd like it a little better, but it's for 2 since you get the creature token. So it makes it worth it in the end, I guess. Next is Shining Armor. Let's make sure. Shining Armor, yep. For 1 and a white, you get an equipment with Flash, and then Flash says you may cast a spell with Flash anytime you could cast an instant. When Shining Armor enters the battlefield, attach it to target knight you control. Equipped creature gets +0/+2 and it has Vigilance, and then the equipped is 3. So when it enters the battlefield, you get a free equipped, which makes this worth 2 mana. The Flash also makes it worth, so you can flash it in on your opponent's attack step when you're blocking, and then you can possibly have your creature survive. Not too bad. Next is Crystal Slipper. This is in the new set. For 1 and a red, you get equipment. It says equipped creature has +1/+0 and has haste. Equipped is 1. Haste is important, especially when you have decks where creatures need to attack. So it's a good placement here. It could be a little better if it gave toughness +1, but regardless, it's good in this set. Next is Mask of Immolation for 1 and a red. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 red elemental creature token, then attach Mask of Immolation to it. Equipped creature has sacrifice this creature. It deals 1 damage to any target, and then the equip cost is 2. So you get another 1/1 creature token for the Corpse Knight, and then anytime you equipped it, which you can equip for 0, you can deal 1 damage to any target. Now, if you have something that deals damage whenever a creature dies, like Sir Conrad, then you can just move this card over, especially if you have equip cost of 0. You can move the card over to each one of your creatures, and then it'll do 2 damage every time a creature dies. So, or every time you sacrifice a creature. Next is Despark for white and a black. Exile target permanent with converted mana cost 4 or greater. It's really, really good. You get mana advantage basically when your opponent casts something for 4 and you kill it for 2. Especially important is that it can hit planeswalkers, and then that just makes it even better removal. Next, Steelclaw Lance. For a black and a red, you get an equipment. It says equipped creature gets +2/+2. If you equipped a knight, its equip cost is 1, and if you don't, its equip cost is 3. That's really important since this is a knight tribal deck. 2/2 is a good amount, as it can go over smaller creatures, and then it allows you to maybe make sure your creature lives. Next is Arcane Signet. It's in every single one of these decks. It's probably a Brawl staple until it rotates, and then when it rotates, they'll probably make another one. But Arcane Signet is a 2-drop artifact. It says tap, add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Next is Marauder's Axe. For 2, it's an equipment. It says equipped creature gets +2 and +0. The equip cost is 2. Not much to say about it. +2/+0 ain't bad, but it's not great. There are better equipment that you could put in this deck, but seeing as it's a precon, it's okay. Next is Ballet of the Brawl. Oh, now we're on 3 drops, excuse me. So we have Ballet of the Brawl, Midnight Reaper, Sky Knight Legionnaire, Taschek, Legion's Edge, Mace of the Valiant, Obnixilus's Cruelty, Knight's Charge, Mortify, and Icon of Ancestry. So, for 3 and a black, Ballet of the Brawl. I said it different each time, but Ballet of the Brawl. For 3 and 2, you get a Human Knight with Menace. Whenever it attacks, other knights you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. I like Battle Cry effects, since this deck's probably gonna want to win with commander damage, with combat damage. It's pretty good that it gives +1/+0. Now, if you combine that with something that gives it indestructible, like the Wintermoor Commander, now you can probably get that done every turn. It's good, I like it, especially in the uncommon slot. Easy to get. Next is Midnight Reaper for 2 and a black. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, Midnight Reaper deals 1 damage to you, and you draw a card. It's a 3/2 zombie knight. Not much to say about this one. I like it, seeing as these creatures in this deck, when you have to deal combat damage to win, are probably going to die, and then being able to draw a card, and then you just lose 1 life from it. It's pretty important. But you already have ways to draw cards, especially with the commander, so I really don't like that you could possibly lose 2 life and draw 2 cards, because there's not that much life gain in this deck. But regardless, it is a good card on its own, and so I like it. Next is Sky Knight Legionnaire for 1 a white and a red. Or for 1 a red and a white, whichever way you want to say it. It has flying and haste. It's a 2/2 human knight. Good early game, especially when you have equipment to give to it. All the other decks have flying in them, and that makes that important, but you have lots of equipment that could be popped on it, and then you could basically just use it as a Voltron card. But I like it since it has haste. You pop it down. If you have Sir Gwyn out, you can give it all the equipments you have and then swing with it. It's pretty good. Next is Taschek, Legion's Edge. It's for the same cost as the last one, 1 red and a white, you get a 3/2 legendary creature, Human Soldier. It has Haste, it has Mentor, prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to other creatures you control, and then for red and a white, it gains first strike until end of turn. So we haven't gone over Mentor in this set of Brawl reviews, so we'll go over it right now. Mentor says whenever this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power. And then, since we didn't go over Haste, Haste says a creature with Haste can attack and tap as soon as it comes under your control. The important part about this one is non-combat damage, since there's lots of targeted removal. It makes it a lot easier for your creatures to survive, especially with little ones, as you wait to finish the game. And then being able to give it first strike so it doesn't die in the middle of combat is pretty nice. I like it as a commander most of the time, but in this situation it's pretty good too. Mace of the Valiant for 2 and a white. It's an equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each charge counter on Mace of the Valiant and has Vigilance. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a charge counter on Mace of the Valiant, and then its equip cost is 3. Pretty good. However, if you play all your small creatures before you get this, then it instantly makes it not worth it. There aren't enough ways to make tokens still, and so that means that it kinda makes it a little difficult. If you don't have this early, then it's okay. The Vigilance makes it almost worth it. That would be worth like 1 mana or 2 mana, but it could give you 0/0 and Vigilance, especially if you don't get any creature cards afterwards. It's highly doubtful since there are quite a few creatures, but regardless. Next is Nixilis' Cruelty. It's an instant for 2 and a black. Target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. Gets rid of 5/5 creatures or smaller and then exiles them, so that way if your opponent has a recurl from the graveyard, don't have to worry about that. Pretty good. Next is Knight's Charge. For 1, a white and a black, whenever a knight you control attacks, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And for 6, a white and a black, sacrifice Knight's Charge. Return all knight creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Wow. Wow, do I like this card for Knight Tribal. And then also, it's only in the rare slot, which makes it more interesting. Whenever a knight attacks, so that means every single one that attacks triggers this, so you can basically deal quite a bit of damage early. And then returning all knight creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. If somehow you get your entire deck in there, or most of it, you can return almost every single creature in this deck. Wow. I like it. I'm definitely going to get it once it comes through in this set, so. Mortify for 1 a black and a white, destroy target creature enchantment. Important since this set has one deck that focuses on enchantments. And then Icon of Ancestry for 3. It's an artifact. As Icon of Ancestry enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. And then for 3 and tap, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from the chosen type from among them, put in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So, it's real good when you don't have anything in your hand. You choose Knight, you tap it, you probably find a Knight, and then you get to play it. Well, you have to pay the mana cost still, but regardless. I like it. It helps us churn through our deck in case we get mana flooded, or we just get lots of things we don't need, and then possibly we could hit one of our big boys. Next, we only have 1 card in the 4 slot, and then for Boros ×4, or red or white is how that goes, you get Fireborn Knight. It's a 2/3 human knight with double strike, and then for its casting cost again, or for Boros, Fireborn Knight gets +1/+1 until end of turn. You could end the game with this. If you have Sir Gwyn out, and then you have all kinds of equipments, specifically we need one that gives trample here, but regardless, it has double strike, and so it will more than likely kill anything it goes against, especially the death touch creatures. Integrity. This is well, these are 5 drops. Integrity is a dual card, but there's Sir Conrad the Grim, Bond of Discipline, and then Single Combat. We'll go backwards this time. Single Combat for 3 a white and a white. It's a sorcery. Each player chooses a creature or planeswalker they control, then sacrifices the rest. Players cannot cast creatures or planeswalker spells until the end of your next turn. Unfortunately, we can't put anything that gives us flash for this in our deck, but it's good because once we do this, we could leave creatures like Sir Gwyn out and then put all our equipment on it and then swing at our opponent. It makes it nice. Next, Bond of Discipline for 4 and a white. Tap all creatures your opponents control. Creatures you control gain lifelink until end of turn. While this is pretty good, this is really, really good if you have a whole bunch of creatures or a lot of equipment on your creatures. It gives you just enough life gain to not die to Sir Gwyn's trigger. So I like it in this deck. We just need to find more ways to get lifelink. Or gain life. Sir Conrad the Grim for 3 a black and a black. It's a 5/4 human knight. Basically, this card says whenever a creature goes to your graveyard or leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. Why I say that is whenever a creature dies, meaning from the battlefield to the graveyard, or a creature is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield. So basically, whenever a creature goes into your graveyard or leaves your graveyard. And then for 1 and a black, each opponent mills 1. I like that it gives you the mill, but there's not much recursion in this deck. If you have Knight's Charge, then it's perfect. But if you don't have Knight's Charge out already, and you don't have the mana to activate it before someone can destroy it, then the mill isn't that great. Last is Integrity and Intervention. For 1 Boros, you get instant, target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Or Intervention, for 2 a red and a white. Intervention deals 3 damage to any target, and you gain 3 life. Intervention's good because it can keep you from dying, but it's not really worth the mana cost. Integrity gives you the +2/+2 until end of turn on 1 creature, which also ain't great, but for 1 mana it does just enough. You can keep one of your important creatures from dying, or you can deal enough damage to kill someone, especially if you put it on a double striker like Fireborn Knight. Next, we have, well actually I don't know, it looks like 6 drops. Well, that's definitely not a 6 drop, but we have Response and Resurgence. First is Response, the instant part, which is for 2 Boros. Response deals 5 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. And Resurgence for 3 a red and a white. Creatures you can control get first strike and vigilance until end of turn. After this main phase, there's an additional combat phase, followed by an additional main phase. Multiple combat phases rock. Especially if you have cards like Bond of Discipline. If you have enough mana to do this part, you pretty much just win the game. First strike, vigilance, and lifelink is amazing. And then your creatures don't tap when you do that. And then what also makes that awesome is if you have Sir Gwyn of Hero of Ashvale out, then that makes it a lot easier for you to just end the game. Last but not least is Shivan Dragon. I guess they ran out of knights, because you don't really need the Shivan Dragon in this deck, because it's not a knight, so you don't get to equip it for free. But it has its fire breathing effect, but we'll go over the card. For 4 red and a red, you get a 5/5 dragon with flying, and then for red, Shivan Dragon gets +1/+0 until end of turn. That's it. And then let's see if there are any new lands. It looks like Tournament Grounds. This is the only new one. But it says either you can tap and add a colorless mana, or you can tap and add red or white or black. Spend this mana only to cast knights or equipment. So what's important about this card is if you have this card and another red and only colorless, you cannot cast the Shivan Dragon because it is not a knight. It's the only non-knight card in this deck. So, like I said, if you could play this straight as it is and just replace the Shivan Dragon with another knight, because I guarantee there's another one somewhere. In one of the sets it's legal. But regardless, if you liked this video, eventually I'll get all the cards. I have enough wild cards to get all of these. I'll have this one and I'll do some upgrades to it. If you liked this video, please like, subscribe, or comment, or visit the previous video. Thank you. Later.